This is what I can't believe, and you're their star witness.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Powerhouse Tactical. I really appreciate everyone's support by watching, liking, subscribing, and sharing my videos here. To support us even further, please check out the link below in the descriptions about our original design t-shirts. Trump 2020 Keep America Great t-shirts are right now on sale, so please check them out. Thank you very much, and on to our video. So, the impeachment proceedings of President Trump, the saga continues. Yesterday was the first day of the open hearing of the proceedings, and they had all the media and the whole, the Democratic Party excited about their witnesses that they're calling upon. So through this open hearing, the Democrats are really trying to make a strong impact in the minds of the American people by calling on their star witnesses. The first day, very first day, one of the first witnesses they ever called, his name is William Taylor. Ambassador William Taylor. So he's been the ambassador to Ukraine. He's an acting ambassador to Ukraine since June 18th of 2019, so this year. So he's been in office for about 5 months. And he's one of the first witnesses that Adam Schiff has called.
Aid's held up on July 18th, is that right?
That's when I first heard about it, Mr.
And then it's released Ambassador Taylor on September 11th.
So in his questioning during the hearing, Congressman Jim Jordan is setting the premise right now. So July 18th is the date that the military aid to Ukraine from U.S. Was held up. And the September 11th was the date that the aid actually got released and was given to Ukrainian government.
And we know that from your deposition, in those 55 days that aid is delayed, you met with President Zelensky 3 times. The first one was July 26th, the day after the famous call now between President Trump and President Zelensky. President Zelensky meets with you, Ambassador Volker, and Ambassador Sondland. And again, according to your deposition, your testimony, there was no linkage of security assistance dollars to investigating Burisma or the Bidens.
So during the delay of the funds, the 55-day period, the acting ambassador Tyler, has met with the president of Ukraine 3 times. First time he met with him, it was July 26th, which is one day after the famous call between President Trump and President of Ukraine. And he didn't only meet President of Ukraine by himself, but also there was Ambassador Sondland and also Volker as well. Those two are also the witnesses for this hearing that the Democrats are very heavily counting on.
Second meeting is August 27th. Again, in this 55-day time frame, second meeting is August 27th. President Zelensky meets with you and Ambassador Bolton and others. And again, there's no linkage of dollars, security assistance dollars, to an investigation of the Bidens.
So Bill Tyler meets with President of Ukraine for the second time on the August the 27th, which is about 40 days into this military aid being held up.
And then, of course, the third meeting is September 5th. President Zelensky meets with you and Senators Johnson and Murphy. And once again, there was no linkage of security assistance dollars to an investigation of Burisma or the Bidens.
So during the 55-day period of the funds, military aid funds being held up, there had been 3 meetings, and in none of those 3 meetings, a talk about the whole quid pro quo came up between the Ukrainian president and all the officials, including acting Ambassador Taylor.
My knowledge, the Ukrainians were not aware of the hold on assistance until the 29th of August.
So according to the knowledge of William Taylor, Ukrainian government, including the president of Ukraine, did not have any idea that this military aid funds were being held up until the 29th of August. That's 35 days after the infamous call between President Trump and the president of Ukraine.
3 meetings face-to-face with President Zelensky, no linkage.
What Congressman Jordan here just pointed out, the 3 meetings, no mention of quid pro quo, that should be the end of this entire impeachment proceedings. If you think about it, the whole impeachment proceeding is based on the fact that they're accusing the president of using his position and his power to coerce a foreign government for his personal or political gain. So this whole thing can be a little bit overwhelming and complicated, seemingly complicated. So let's kind of simplify this. So chronological order. July 18th is when the fund started to get held up. July 25th, which is 7 days later, the phone call, the infamous phone call that this entire impeachment proceedings have been based on, happened between President Trump and President of Ukraine. Day later, July 26th, the acting Ambassador Taylor, Ambassador Sondland, and Ambassador Volker met with the Ukrainian president. Day after President Trump's phone call. There was no talk of quid pro quo, no talk of investigating into Biden, Joe Biden, nor Hunter Biden, any of that stuff. That's July 26th, day after the phone call, 8 days after the fund began getting held up. Then the second meeting happened on August the 27th. On August 27th, the acting ambassador Tyler met with the Ukrainian president face to face. Once again, there was no talk of any kind of link to the fund being held up, to the investigating into the Biden affairs. Obviously not, because the knowledge of the funds being held up was not known to Ukrainian government, including the president of Ukraine, until 2 days after that, 2 days after the second meeting on August 29th, and they didn't even find out from U.S. government officials. They found out through an article on Politico. And even after finding out on August 29th, which is about 35 days after the phone call, even after finding out about the funds being held, there was a meeting between the acting ambassador Tyler and the Ukrainian president, face-to-face, in-person meeting, again, for the third time, on September the 5th. Even then, no talk of link between the funds being held up until investigation happens, or any of that quid pro quo talk. Which makes no sense, right? If someone is being pressured, if I'm supposed to get some help, and you're threatening me, you're pressuring me to do something for you before you help me out, and if I don't think it's fair, or if I feel pressured, I'm going to talk to you about it. If I'm too I'm scared of you to talk to you about it, I would talk to your friends about it. The friend who comes to see me, for the third time. And without any promise or talk or acknowledgement of any kind of investigation into the Bidens, just magically, 6 days after the meeting between Tyler and Ukrainian president, the fund gets released by U.S. government. So if the Trump administration was trying to use the funds to pressure Ukrainian government to do something that they don't want to do, they were doing a really poor job, because if I'm going to threaten you that I'm not going to give you some money that I'm supposed to give you until you do something for me, but I don't tell you about the money being held up, So the fund was held up for 55 days. 55 days total. The person who is, or the party, the country, Ukraine in this case, being threatened, being coerced and pressured. During those 55 days, they don't even know that they're being pressured for 42 days. Okay? So out of 55 days, for 42 days, they don't even know that they're being threatened with it. Okay? And without them taking any action whatsoever that Trump supposedly wants, fund gets released. Just like that. Just with this clarification of the timeline, this entire conversation, this entire talk about impeachment should be over and done with. But
So what I'm wondering is, where did you get this clear understanding?
yeah, Mr. Taylor, where did you get this clear understanding?
As I testified, Ms. Jordan, this came from Ambassador Sondland.
So it came from Ambassador Sondland. So why are we even interviewing this guy?
Ambassador Sondland also said that he talked to President Zelensky and Mr. Yermak and had told them that although this was not a quid pro quo.
So Tyler was referring to Sondland. And according to Sondland's testimony, this was not a quid pro quo. What the hell are we still talking about? Why are we even continuing with this hearing? The Democrats are not only wasting taxpayer dollars to have this circus of a hearing, they are just really desperate to focus the American people to the lies, claiming that the President Donald Trump is somehow evil. And to do so, they've created this hearing situation, called on these so-called witnesses who does not know anything. They're relying on hearsay, secondhand information. In fact, Tyler has never even met President Trump. He was not on the Ukrainian call. So why are we calling these so-called witnesses when they didn't witness anything? Speaking of hearsay versus evidence, here's this guy.
Closed primer on hearsay. I think the American public needs to be reminded that countless people have been convicted on hearsay because the courts have routinely allowed and created needed exceptions to hearsay. Hearsay can be much better evidence than direct.
What did he just say?
Hearsay can be much better evidence than direct. Hearsay can be much better evidence than direct, as we have learned in painful instances, and it's certainly valid in this instance.
Well, gentlemen, yield because none of those exceptions would apply to this testimony.
I don't know who said that at the end, but none of those exceptions apply to this testimony. This guy just said hearsay is better evidence than direct evidence. And to think that this guy was somehow elected. Who the hell elected this guy? Well, I'm ashamed to say that I'm from Illinois and this guy is a freaking congressman from Illinois. Then there's this idiot.
Have to be able to come together as a caucus, and if it is this Ukrainian allegation that is what brings the caucus together, then I think we have to run with however we unify the House. And so while I believe personally that we should be pursuing and investigating quite flagrant abuses of the emoluments clause, even reporting as recently as the suspicious stops at Trump properties, even in congressional delegations, or rather in foreign trips. I think that all of this is game for investigation, but we also need to move quite quickly because we're talking about the potential compromise of the 2020 elections. And so this is not just about something that has occurred. This is about preventing a potentially disastrous outcome from occurring next year.
So pretty much two main things we can take away from AOC's statement here. Number one, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's true, false, whatever. This allegation of the president will unify the Democratic Party. And if it's going to unify the Democratic Party, they should just do it. And they should do it strong. Whatever it takes to unite the Democratic Party, that's what they should do. And regardless of what's true and what's not. The second main thing that we can take away from her so-called statement here on CNN, the communist news network, is that it doesn't really matter what happened. They're not really worried about what happened, but what may happen in the future. All of a sudden, we're in the minority report here.
So you weren't on the call, were you? The president, you didn't listen on President Trump's call and President Zelensky's call?
I did not.
You've never talked with Chief of Staff Mulvaney?
I never did.
You never met the president?
That's correct.
You had 3 meetings again with Zelensky and it didn't come up.
And 2 of those they had never heard about, as far as I know.
And
there was no reason for it.
President Zelensky never made an announcement. This is what I can't believe, and you're their star witness. You're their first witness.
I'm glad at least we have a warrior like Jim Jordan on this in this hearing, trying to protect our president.
You're the guy. You're the guy. Based on this, I mean, I've seen church prayer chains that are easier to understand than this. Ambassador Taylor recalls that Mr. Morrison told. Now again, this is I hereby swear and affirm from Gordon Sondland. Ambassador Taylor recalls that Mr. Morrison told Ambassador Taylor that I told Mr. Morrison and I conveyed this message to Mr. Yarmouk on September 1st, 20. This all happens, by the way. This all happens, by the way, in Warsaw, where Vice President Pence meets with President Zelensky. And guess what?
Taylor,
they didn't talk about any linkage either.
Time the gentleman's expired.
So bottom line, this whole circus, from the beginning, I've been calling this a circus and just a show. Many people have been. Majority of this country knows that, but the media will not admit it and continue to feed the narrative that the most people in this country, most Americans, are for this impeachment hearing, which is ridiculous, which is just outright lies. That is our show for today. Thank you very much, as always, for joining me. I look forward to seeing you in our next video. Until then, stay safe, stay yellow. God bless you, and God bless our republic.
Hearsay can be much better evidence than direct.
Ambassador, you weren't on the call, were you? The president, you didn't listen on President Trump's call and President Zelensky's call?
I did not.
You've never talked with Chief of Staff Mulvaney?
I never did.
You never met the president?
That's correct.
You had 3 meetings again with Zelensky and it didn't come up.
And 2 of those they had never heard about, as far as I know.
And President
there was no reason for it.
President Zelensky never made an announcement. This is what I can't believe, and you're their star witness.